how are you going to reassure the international business community, investors, and members of the public that the city remains an international city with all its freedoms, online freedom, freedom of speech, and autonomy intact? My second question is that you've been saying that you've been trying to create the right atmosphere to enact Article 23 national security legislation. Have you been pushing for that? Did you tell Beijing that you can do it, or did you just give up? My third question is that you've been stressing that the national security legislation introduced today by Beijing today is meant to help safeguard people's interests as well, so that people can feel safe. Do you actually expect the protest violence will end because of the introduction of this legislation? What about the resistance? What about concerns by, do you expect the protests to just gonna stop? Like, are you gonna ignore voices who are concerned about this legislation? Thank you.
No, as far as the financial markets' reaction to this sort of incidents, I think we need not be over worried, because the stock market goes up and comes down. What is important is the robustness of Hong Kong's regulatory system. And I've been assured by the financial secretary, and we have also the chairwoman of the Hong Kong Exchange here, that the system is robust as ever. So we need not be unduly concerned. As far as the Chamber's reaction, you have quoted the public response by one of the chambers, but I have also read press statements issued by some of the Hong Kong local chambers who felt very much like what I have said, that especially having gone through almost 1 year of disruptions, violence, and uncertainties, anything particularly in safeguarding national security that will help stabilize the environment is indeed very good for local investment sentiment. So as usual, there are different views and different responses. At the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves whether for a place like Hong Kong, which is an inalienable part of the People's Republic of China, could we do without that sort of system to enhance our ability to protect national security? I think the answer must be no. And since we could not do it on our own after 23 years, then this is a time for decisive actions to be taken by the central authorities. Then I come to the second part of your question. I'm about to finish my 3rd year in office as the chief executive. I did say at the very beginning that enacting local legislation for national security under Basic Law 23 is a constitutional duty of the Hong Kong SAR government and myself as the chief executive. I have made attempts, some serious attempts, to create a better environment, which means that the government needs to work with parties across the political spectrum in order to create that sort of more conducive environment for doing something which has proven to be very controversial about 16, 17 years ago. But unfortunately, despite a pretty peaceful start for a while, the relationship turned very difficult once we touched on sensitive issues that have a mainland angle. And you know what I mean. So I have been trying my best, but since we could not do it, I don't think we could do it in the foreseeable future, both in the executive as well as the legislature. So I don't know whether your term is the right term of giving up. I'm not giving up, but there is now another way of ensuring that Hong Kong will have the necessary legislation and the safeguards in place for national security. For the third question, Hong Kong is a free society. Hong Kong will remain to be a very free society where freedoms of expression, freedom of protest, freedom of journalism will stay, because these are the core values of Hong Kong and are very much protected by the Basic Law. So I do not expect that protests will end. There will be protests of all sorts in Hong Kong, as we have seen. But the important thing is for the people of Hong Kong to realize that without protection of national security, many of the things that we enjoy, many of the things that we treasure will be lost. So this is really the time for us not to waste any more time and to get on with this important legislative safeguards.